Imagine a serial killer so brilliant, so meticulous, he works alongside the police, yet remains completely invisible. Dexter Morgan, a forensic blood spatter analyst, lived a double life, hunting other killers while evading detection for decades. But what if his meticulously crafted world collided with the unparalleled might of the real-life FBI, an agency built to hunt down monsters exactly like him? First, let's talk about intelligence, Dexter's forensic genius versus the FBI's behavioral science unit. Dexter Morgan operated with a mind like a surgical instrument, fine-tuned for one purpose: getting away with murder. Throughout the series, Dexter excelled academically, absorbing every detail about blood spatter analysis and turning that knowledge into a career at the Miami Metro Police Department. While other analysts saw mere stains and patterns, Dexter perceived complete narratives written in arterial spray and pooling blood. He consistently demonstrated this ability at crime scenes, accurately determining angles of impact, victim positioning, and killer characteristics from blood patterns, often while his colleagues were still processing what they were seeing. His intelligence extended beyond lab work. Dexter adeptly hacked police servers without leaving traces, manipulated digital evidence, and deleted security footage. When Lieutenant LaGuerta discovered a blood slide at Travis Marshall's crime scene in the Season 6 finale and began reinvestigating the Bay Harbor butcher case in Season 7, Dexter didn't panic. In the Season 7 finale, Episode 12, he fed her misinformation, planted evidence to frame Hector Estrada, and subtly undermined her credibility with colleagues. He meticulously dismantled her case piece by piece until she lost all standing, ultimately cornering her at the shipping yard. While Deborah was forced to shoot LaGuerta to protect him, Dexter's intelligence was a scalpel, precise, controlled, and devastatingly effective when wielded alone. Could that surgical precision stand up to an opponent who has multiplied it across thousands of minds? Now, consider the FBI. The Behavioral Analysis Unit, BAU, was built upon decades of accumulated knowledge, thousands of solved cases, and systematic profiling techniques refined over generations. Agents like John E. Douglas and Robert K. Ressler didn't just catch killers, they interviewed them, studied them, and built psychological profiles that predicted behavior with terrifying accuracy. The FBI established the Behavioral Science Unit, BSU, in 1972, which later evolved into today's BAU. Between 1972 and the mid-1980s, agents interviewed 36 incarcerated serial killers to build their profiling database. In 1985, they created VCAP, the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program, a database containing details on thousands of violent crimes across the country. They cross-referenced victim types, geographic patterns, cooling-off periods, and crime scene signatures. Dexter's intelligence kept him hidden. The FBI's intelligence was designed specifically to find people like him. When the FBI tracked down Dennis Rader, the BTK killer, they built a profile, monitored communications, and traced metadata on a floppy disk he sent them. Rader thought he was being clever, but the Bureau was 3 steps ahead. Dexter could hack Miami Metro's outdated systems, but the FBI operates with robust encryption, redundant backups, and cybersecurity protocols that make local police databases look primitive by comparison. One slip, one digital fingerprint, and their cyber division would triangulate him before he even finished logging out. One mind, no matter how sharp, cannot compete with a machine built to hunt. In the realm of intelligence, the FBI would undoubtedly prevail. Dexter's surgical precision against the FBI's systematic infrastructure. Individual genius, however brilliant, hits a ceiling. Institutional knowledge does not. Dexter's forensic genius allowed him to evade detection at crime scenes, and operating completely alone gave him total control over every variable. Yet, that same isolation becomes a critical vulnerability when facing an agency that never operates alone. We are comparing solo killing to a multi-agency manhunt. Dexter Morgan's greatest tactical advantage was operating in total isolation. No partners, no backup, no one who could make mistakes that exposed his work. From the moment Harry taught him his code, Dexter learned to operate alone. He studied his targets for weeks, sometimes months, meticulously learning their routines, homes, and weaknesses. His kill rooms were masterpieces of preparation, plastic sheeting covering every surface, tools laid out in perfect order, sedatives calculated to the milligram. In Season 4, he spent weeks studying Arthur Mitchell, the Trinity Killer, before attempting to kill him, learning every detail of his patterns and family life. Complete control, zero loose ends. He controlled every variable because he had to. One missed detail, one witness, one drop of blood in the wrong place, and 20 years of work would collapse. Yet, isolation also means limitations. He couldn't be in two places at once. He couldn't monitor multiple suspects simultaneously. He couldn't run license plates, track phone records, or access federal databases. Everything required him to be physically present, exposed, and vulnerable. His strength doubled as his fundamental weakness. While Dexter perfected the art of hunting alone, the FBI perfected something far more dangerous. When the FBI decides to hunt someone, they deploy a task force comprised of multiple field agents, local law enforcement, state police, and the U.S. Marshals, creating a net that closes rapidly. Consider Ted Bundy. He escaped custody twice, crossed state lines, changed his appearance, and lived under false names. The FBI still found him, not because one detective got lucky, but because hundreds of agents coordinated across regions, shared information in real time, and tightened the noose. In 1978, FBI agents created a psychological profile that helped place Bundy on the 10 most wanted list, and within 5 days, he was caught. Or take the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, who operated for 17 years with no witnesses and no physical evidence. The FBI built a profile, analyzed his writings, published his manifesto, and when his brother recognized the writing style, the Bureau moved in with overwhelming force. The FBI has surveillance teams that rotate shifts, analysts who work around the clock, forensic accountants who trace financial activity, and digital specialists who monitor online behavior. When they identify a target, they don't rush in. They watch, gather evidence, build an airtight case, and then move. One man can only do so much. A federal agency with unlimited jurisdiction and thousands of personnel. That's an avalanche. Dexter's isolation gave him control, but against a coordinated federal response, that same isolation would trap him with nowhere to run. Once again, the FBI emerges victorious. Solo operation equals complete control until faced with a coordinated machine that never sleeps. Dexter's isolation gave him power until it became his critical vulnerability against a multi-agency response. Operating in isolation only mattered if nobody suspected him in the first place, which brings us to Dexter's most powerful weapon, a mask so convincing that even trained detectives never saw through it. The FBI, however, has spent decades learning how to see through masks exactly like his. Dexter Morgan manufactured a persona so convincing that he became invisible in plain sight. The awkward smile, the bad jokes, the quiet forensic analyst who brought donuts to the office and never caused problems, this was camouflage designed to make him invisible. In Season 2, while at Eddie's Diner with his Narcotics Anonymous sponsor, Lila Ternay, Dexter first used the term dark passenger to describe his homicidal urges, the entity he had been carrying since witnessing his mother's murder in a shipping container at age 3. Throughout the series, Dexter's dark passenger represented his psychological need to kill, which he learned to suppress and channel through Harry's code. In the Season 6 finale, This Is the Way the World Ends, Dexter stood over Travis Marshall's body, a man he had just killed, and gave a flawless forensic analysis to his colleagues. No hesitation, no cracks. The mask had become a part of him. His calm under pressure was textbook psychopathic detachment. Emotions didn't cloud his judgment, fear didn't trigger mistakes. When Dokes trapped him in Season 2, Episode 9, Resistance is Futile, Dexter's heart rate stayed steady, his thoughts stayed clear. He didn't panic, he calculated. The mask worked because people took his performance at face value, never looking deeper, accepting what they wanted to see. But there's a problem with masks when facing full human observation. The FBI doesn't rely on what they see. The FBI builds comprehensive psychological profiles based on decades of research that predict behavior patterns with terrifying accuracy. The Behavioral Analysis Unit, as mentioned, was established in 1972, evolving from the Behavioral Science Unit. Agents like Robert K. Ressler, who actually coined the term serial killer in 1974, John E. Douglas, and Howard Teton pioneered criminal profiling by interviewing 36 incarcerated serial killers between 1972 and the mid-1980s. They developed the organized versus disorganized killer dichotomy. Organized killers, like Dexter, plan meticulously, display control over victims, leave little forensic evidence, and maintain normal appearances in daily life. The FBI created a 6-step criminal investigative analysis process that classifies crime scenes, integrates behavioral patterns, and generates detailed psychological profiles. When they interviewed Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, who evaded capture for 20 years, FBI interrogators didn't attack him. They empathized with him, made him feel understood, and subtly used his own psychology against him. Ridgway confessed to 48 murders, not because they broke him with pressure, but because they made confession feel like it was his idea. The FBI studies interview techniques specifically designed for psychopaths, building rapport, using tactical empathy, and analyzing microexpressions and linguistic patterns. They use geographic profiling to map crime locations and predict where offenders live or work. They analyze victim selection patterns, signature behavior versus modus operandi, trophy collection tendencies, and control dynamics. When the FBI profiled Ted Bundy in 1978, they accurately predicted he was intelligent, charming, mobile, targeted young women at venues like college campuses and resorts, and would continue escalating. They would profile Dexter as a highly organized, mission-oriented killer with a code, likely working in law enforcement, with a need for control and methodical planning. His mask wouldn't fool them. They have interviewed dozens of killers exactly like him and know every psychological tell, every behavioral pattern, every predictable trait. So, in the battle of the mask, the FBI would emerge victorious. Dexter's persona fooled individuals who took his performance at face value. FBI profilers don't accept anything at face value. They have spent decades studying killers exactly like Dexter and know every pattern he thinks makes him unique. Even the perfect psychological profile means nothing without physical evidence. Dexter thought he had the ultimate advantage, his meticulous crime scene preparation. The FBI has technology that operates on a completely different level. Dexter built his survival on meticulous crime scene preparation, using bleach, plastic wrap, and careful body disposal to leave absolutely no trace of evidence behind. Dexter cleaned his crime scenes with bleach and plastic wrap. He dumped bodies in the ocean, weighed down with biodegradable bags. He left no fingerprints, no DNA, no witnesses. In Season 2, when scuba divers accidentally discovered his underwater burial ground off the coast of Miami, 18 dismembered bodies were recovered, all belonging to known killers who had slipped through the justice system. The FBI dubbed him the Bay Harbor Butcher and launched a massive investigation led by Special Agent Frank Lundy. Despite having physical evidence, Miami Metro and the FBI never identified Dexter because he controlled every physical detail. In his mind, he was untouchable. His mask worked because people believed he was harmless through his persona. His camouflage targeted human observation, the awkward forensic analyst who seemed incapable of violence. This approach had a fatal flaw. While Dexter cleaned surfaces by hand with bleach, forensic technology advanced far beyond what the human eye could detect or what traditional cleaning could eliminate. The FBI had been developing tools that could find what Dexter thought he had erased forever. The FBI trusts forensic technology that operates on a level that makes human camouflage completely irrelevant. Luminol can detect blood traces invisible to the naked eye, even after extensive cleaning. DNA analysis has advanced to the point where they can extract genetic profiles from skin cells left on surfaces touched once years ago. They now have forensic genealogy, the same technology that caught the Golden State Killer after decades of inactivity. All it took was a distant relative's DNA uploaded to a public database. The FBI uses geofencing. They can pull location data from every phone in a specific area during a specific time window. If Dexter was anywhere near a crime scene when a victim disappeared, his phone would ping. If that pattern repeated, the algorithm would flag him automatically. The FBI uses drones, thermal imaging, license plate readers, and facial recognition software tied into databases that catalog millions of faces. If they identified Dexter as a person of interest, they could track every place he went, every person he met, every transaction he made. They wouldn't need to see him kill someone, they would just need to see him deviating from normal patterns at the exact times that victims went missing. Was Dexter careful enough to avoid leaving a single epithelial cell at a crime scene? One microscopic trace, and the Bureau could build a profile, run it through CODIs, cross-reference it with familial DNA databases, and suddenly his anonymity would evaporate. Data doesn't lie. One forensic match, one cell tower ping, one security camera. That's all it would take. So, in the contest of social camouflage against forensic technology that can extract DNA from a surface touched once years ago, the FBI would win. Dexter's methods were designed for 2006. The FBI's technology is built for 2025 and beyond. What do you think? Could Dexter's mask fool FBI interrogators, or would they have seen right through it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Forensic evidence only matters when you can get the suspect into custody. Dexter's real superpower emerges here, the ability to stay ice-cold when everything falls apart. Even that psychopathic calm has a breaking point when facing FBI interrogation techniques designed specifically to find it. Dexter Morgan lived for pressure. When things got close, when the walls started closing in, his psychopathic traits kept him ice-cold. His heart rate stayed steady, his thoughts stayed clear. He didn't panic, he calculated. When Dokes found him mid-setup in Season 2, Dexter cleaned up, played it casual, and walked out like it was a misunderstanding. When LaGuardia found a blood slide at Travis Marshall's crime scene in the Season 6 finale and reopened the Bay Harbor Butcher investigation in Season 7, Dexter stayed 3 steps ahead. She had a timeline, motive, and partial evidence. In the Season 7 finale, Episode 12, LaGuardia even had Dexter arrested at the shipping yard, but he had already lured Hector Estrada there to make it look like she was chasing the wrong suspect. When she pulled her gun on Dexter, Deborah arrived and was forced to shoot LaGuardia to save him. Dexter dismantled every piece of her investigation while showing up to work, smiling at Harrison, and playing the perfect single dad. Emotions didn't cloud his judgment, fear didn't trigger mistakes. Dexter operated with complete emotional control because he felt virtually nothing. His mask required performance, and that performance remained sustainable as long as he controlled the environment and set the terms of engagement in isolation when manipulating his surroundings. Miami Metro detectives and local investigators weren't trained in advanced psychological interrogation. The FBI was. FBI interrogators use psychology, pattern recognition, and exhaustive preparation to systematically break even the most controlled suspects over extended sessions. Before an FBI agent walks into an interrogation room, they've already studied everything about the suspect, prior statements, financial records, travel history, known associates. They've even identified every inconsistency, every gap, every lie waiting to surface. They don't accuse, they empathize, build rapport, and make the suspect feel like cooperation is the smart move. While doing this, they're watching micro-expressions, body language, changes in breathing, and hesitations. When the FBI brought in Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, who had killed for 20 years without getting caught, he was calm, controlled, ready to deny everything. The interrogators talked to him about his life and motivations. They made him feel understood. Slowly, piece by piece, Ridgway started talking, confessing to 48 murders. In an FBI interrogation room, Dexter wouldn't control anything. The temperature would be set to make him uncomfortable. The chairs would be positioned to create subtle psychological dominance. The questions would come in waves, aggressive and sympathetic, designed to create cognitive dissonance and trap him in contradictions. Dexter's mask requires sustained performance, but in an interrogation lasting 6, 8, or 12 hours, maintaining that performance becomes impossible. Exhaustion sets in. Focus slips. And when it does, the real person underneath starts showing through. One slip, one inconsistency, one answer that doesn't match a previous statement, that's all it takes. Once again, the FBI is the winner. Dexter's ice-cold control against FBI interrogators who have broken serial killers with decades more experience. Don't get me wrong, his psychopathic calm would last hours. Their interrogation techniques, however, are designed to last days until the mask cracks. If you thought Dexter's control under interrogation was impressive, wait until you see what happens when he decided Miami had become too dangerous and it was time to vanish completely. Dexter Morgan understood that vanishing meant becoming so unremarkable that even people looking directly at you don't see anything worth remembering. When everything fell apart in Miami at the end of Season 8, Dexter didn't leave a trail. The slice of life went straight into Hurricane Laura and never came back. No body, no evidence, just a boat lost to the storm. Within weeks, Dexter Morgan faded from memory. Years later, in Dexter, New Blood, we see him in Iron Lake, New York, living as Jim Lindsay, a guy with a job at Fred's Fish and Game Shop, a cabin outside town, and a girlfriend who happened to be the chief of police, Angela Bishop. Nearly a decade passed with 0 kills until Matt Caldwell, and 0 investigations. He didn't just avoid suspicion, he built a life so small and ordinary that nobody looked twice. He worked a normal job, paid taxes under his new identity, and blended into a community where everyone knew everyone. Dexter survived in Iron Lake because nobody was looking for him. Miami Metro thought he was dead. The Bay Harbor butcher case was closed. There was no manhunt, no active investigation, no federal resources deployed. He disappeared because law enforcement let him. But what happens when they don't let you disappear? When they activate every resource designed to find you. When the FBI decides that a suspect is alive and operational, they activate a nationwide infrastructure specifically designed to close every possible exit and make disappearing impossible. When a suspect goes on the run, the Bureau doesn't just send agents to known locations. They activate fugitive task forces that coordinate with U.S. Marshals, State Police, Border Patrol, and even Interpol. They flag passports, freeze bank accounts, and monitor credit card activity in real time. They distribute BOLO, be on the lookout, alerts to every law enforcement agency in the country. Whitey Bulger disappeared for 16 years with money, connections, and decades of criminal experience. He moved constantly, used fake identities, and stayed off the grid, and the FBI still found him. They aged his photographs using forensic software, monitored tips, and followed up on every sighting. When they pinpointed him to Santa Monica, they moved within days. If the FBI ever connected Dexter Morgan to a pattern of unsolved murders in Miami and reclassified him as an active fugitive, the entire infrastructure would activate. They'd analyze his habits, his psychological profile, his likely destinations, probably rural communities where someone could live quietly. Once they narrowed the search area, facial recognition would do the rest. Every security camera, every DMV photo, every social media post with someone in the background. The FBI doesn't need Dexter to make a mistake. They need one person to upload a photo with him in it, and the algorithm flags it automatically. Dexter worked at a bait shop, which means a W-2, tax filings, and a social security number. The moment the FBI pulled employment records for Jim Lindsay and ran them against biometric databases, one fingerprint from a background check, one photo ID scanned into a state system, his face would be on the news, his photo in every police station, and agents would be knocking on doors in Iron Lake within 72 hours. So, in the challenge of vanishing, the FBI is the clear winner. Dexter disappeared because nobody was actively hunting him. Against an active FBI manhunt with facial recognition, financial tracking, and nationwide coordination, his Iron Lake anonymity would last weeks, not years. Dexter Morgan was brilliant, methodical, precise, and for over 20 years, he operated in plain sight, surrounded by cops, and never got caught. He built a system that worked. He followed the code. He controlled every variable. But all of that worked because he was hunting individuals. People who didn't see him coming. People who couldn't coordinate. People who were isolated, vulnerable, and outmatched. The FBI is an institution. Thousands of agents. Decades of research. Technology that operates beyond human limitations. An infrastructure that spans the entire country. The Bureau doesn't need to outthink him, it just needs to outlast him. Dexter's intelligence was surgical, the FBI's intelligence is systemic. Dexter operated alone, the FBI operates as a coordinated machine. Dexter cleaned crime scenes by hand, the FBI has forensic labs that can extract DNA from a surface touched once years ago. Dexter built a persona to fool the people around him, but the FBI doesn't care about personas. They care about evidence, data, and patterns. If Dexter existed in the real world, he wouldn't last 5 years. Not against the Behavioral Analysis Unit. Not against Cody's and VCAP. Not against facial recognition, cell tower tracking, and forensic genealogy. Not against interrogators trained to break people who've spent their entire lives learning how to lie. He was a ghost in Miami because Miami Metro didn't know what they were looking for. But the FBI would know. They'd profile him. They'd track him. And they'd close him long before Dexter realized the net was tightening. One man with a code versus the most powerful investigative force in the world. The game would have been over before Dexter even knew it had begun. And Dexter would have been the first one to know it. That's why he stayed small. That's why he stayed local. Because the moment the FBI got involved, everything he built for 20 years would collapse in days.